The Margraviate of Baden was a historical territory of the Holy Roman Empire, spread along the east side of the Upper Rhine River in southwestern Germany. It was named a Margraviate in 1112 and existed until 1803, when it was raised to an electorate. In 1806, the Electorate of Baden, receiving territorial additions, became the Grand Duchy of Baden. The rulers of Baden belonged to the Swabian House of Zähringen. History. During the 11th century, the Duchy of Swabia lacked a powerful central authority and was under the control of various comital dynasties, the strongest of them being the House of Hohenstaufen, the House of Welf, the Habsburgs, and the House of Zähringen. Emperor Henry III had promised the ducal throne to the Zähringen scion Berthold. However, upon Henry's death in 1056, his widow Agnes of Poitou appointed Rudolf of Rheinfelden Duke of Swabia. Berthold renounced his rights and was compensated with the Duchy of Carinthia and the March of Verona in Italy. Not able to establish himself, he finally lost both territories. When he was deposed by King Henry IV of Germany during the investiture controversy in 1077, Berthold retired to his Swabian home territory, where he died the next year. The Veronese margravial title was nevertheless retained by his eldest son Hermann I. Hermann II, son of Hermann I and grandson of Berthold II, had concluded an agreement with the rivaling Hohenstaufen dynasty, and about 1098 was involved with immediate territory by Emperor Henry IV. Like his father, Hermann II insisted on his margravial title. He chose to establish his residence in Germany, as he had been born and raised there. His lordship of choice was Baden, where his father had gained the right to rule by marrying the heiress, Judith von Backnang-Sulichgau, Countess of Eberstein-Calw. In Baden, Hermann II had Hohenbaden Castle built. Construction began about 1100, and when completed in 1112, he marked the occasion by adopting the title of a Margrave of Baden. Growth. Because Baden was the capital, the new Margraviate was also known as Baden. Hermann II would continue to be Margrave until his death in 1130. His son and grandson, Hermann III and Hermann IV, added to the territories. Around 1200, these lands were divided for the first time. Two lines, Baden-Baden and Baden-Hochberg, were founded. The latter was divided about 100 years later to create the third line, Baden-Sausenberg. In the 12th and 13th centuries, Baden was a loyal and steadfast supporter of the House of Hohenstaufen, even against its own relatives from Zähringen and Swabia. In return for its services, it was permitted to spread its rule throughout southwestern Germany, west across the Rhine River into Alsace, east to the edges of the Black Forest, north to the Murg River and south to the Breisgau. The fourth Margrave of Baden-Baden, Hermann V, Margrave of Baden-Baden, founded the cities of Backnang, Durlach, Stuttgart, Ettlingen, and Pforzheim and several monasteries, including the Lichtental Abbey, which became the burial place of his descendants. In 1219 he moved his seat of power to Pforzheim. He had to abandon his claims to Zähringen and Braunschweig, but he gained the title of Graf von Ortenau and Breisgau, named for the two valleys in southern Baden. His son and grandson, Hermann V, Margrave of Baden, and Frederick I, Margrave of Baden, claimed the titles of Dukes of Austria and Styria. The Austrians rejected them as they did not want to be ruled by outsiders. Consolidation. Margrave Bernhard I, Margrave of Baden united all of the acquisitions in 1391. A soldier of some renown, Bernhard continued the mission of his predecessors, and gained several more districts, including Baden-Pforzheim and Baden-Hochberg. Since 1291, Baden-Pforzheim had its own Margraviate, but in 1361 it ran out of heirs, falling back to the House of Baden-Baden. Baden-Hochberg fared little better. Founded in 1190, it lasted until 1418, when it too died with no male heirs. Bernard, being the closest heir, claimed Baden-Hochberg. Baden-Sausenberg continued its own Margraviate until 1503, when the lack of its own heirs sent it back to the House of Baden-Baden. The consolidation of the Margraviate came in 1442. In that year, one half of the dominions of Lahr and Marlburg was brought into the fold, creating the link between the two main areas, the Breisgau in the south and Baden-Baden in the north. Throughout the late Middle Ages, Baden grew its administration, finances and armies until it became one of the biggest and strongest states of the Holy Roman Empire in southwestern Germany, especially after it gained the Habsburg possessions in the rest of the Ortenau and the Breisgau. Tribulations. In 1462, the dispute over the election of the new Archbishop of Mainz sent Charles I to fight the war against Frederick I, the Count Palatine of the Rhine. Known as the Mainz Archbishops' feud, it was brief, lasting only a few months, but the effects were ruinous for the loser, Charles. He had to surrender several of his territories to the Palatinate and its allies. These territories were recovered by his son and successor, Christopher I. In 1503, the Baden-Sausenberg died without male heirs and all the Badener lands were united by Christopher. He tried to keep them united under one of his sons, Philip, but his efforts were foiled by the King of France. Before his death, Christopher divided the Margraviate between his three sons. Philip succeeded him in 1515 but died childless in 1533, and his share went to his brothers, Bernard and Ernest. In 1535, they made a fresh division of their inheritance. It would be the first of several partitions, establishing the two main lines of the House of Baden, Baden-Baden and Baden-Durlach, which would last until 1771. However, the relations between the two lines were not peaceful, and the constant fragmentation did not help. During the Reformation, several branches, led by Baden-Baden, remained on the side of the Catholics, the others joining with Baden-Durlach on the Protestant side. The 30 Years' War made matters worse for all the branches. Many of them were exiled to other countries. Baden suffered severely during the war. The 1648 Treaty of Westphalia restored the branches and the churches to their own lands. Gradually the rivalry subsided. During the wars of Louis XIV, the Sun King of France, the two Margraviates were ravaged by the French troops. The forces of the Holy Roman Empire, led by the Margrave of Baden-Baden, Turkish Louis William, fought against France. Reunification in 1771, Augustus George became the last Margrave of Baden-Baden when he died without sons. All his territories passed to his nearest heir, the Margrave of Baden-Durlach, Charles Frederick. For the third and last time, all the Badener lands became united under a single ruler. Although Baden was finally united, its domains were fragmented and widespread on both sides of the Upper Rhine River, with the total area of 1,350 square miles. When Charles Frederick became the Margrave in 1738, he made it his personal mission to fill the gaps in his territories. His first opportunity came in 1792, when war broke out between France and Austria. The Badeners fought for Austria, leaving Baden devastated when they lost. Charles Frederick had to pay an indemnity and cede his territories on the left bank of the Rhine to France. He had his second chance a few years later, as an enemy of Napoleon, on the side of Alexander I, the Tsar of Russia. In 1803, because of the efforts of the Tsar, the Margrave gained the bishopric of Constance, parts of the Rhenish Palatinate, and several other smaller districts, thereby gaining the dignity of an elector prince. List of Margraves. See the complete list of the rulers for all the branches of the Margraviate of Baden, Baden-Baden, Baden-Durlach, Baden-Hochberg, Baden-Pforzheim, and Baden-Sausenberg.